Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody, and the Four-Wheel Drive Show. I'm your host, Coach Tripp, along with my buddy to my left, Billy Pendock. Down below, Blaze Winter, half of the Four-Wheel Drive. As you can see on my green screen behind me, Blaze and Billy are standing up, and Timmy Green, number 72, and Jamie Kimmel are standing in the back of Billy's pickup truck as part of the Syracuse defensive linemen of the early 80s, 81 through 84, somewhere in there. Guys, thanks for being on the show again this week. We took last week off. I had some minor surgery, turned into major headaches for me. But we're back again, man. And I want to thank everybody for being here. This show is brought to you by Pensacola Glass, Hill Kelly Dodge, Ronnie's Car Wash, and the Seiler Agency, all my title sponsors. Been with me for years. We're working on decades. I think it'll be 14 years coming up August 23rd on my father's birthday coming up this year. So we've been at it, almost a year now, haven't we? Over a year?
Has it?
Is it that long?
Has it been?
I don't know, man. I think it has. I think we started last June, I think it was, or something. I'm not sure, but I'll have to check on it. But yeah, we tackle a theme every week, kind of virtues, and this week is really about the bare facts because I played for Coach Bryant, for years actually, 25 years. I took an in-depth look at Coach Paul Bear Bryant's coaching philosophies and his psychology of coaching. And here on Four-Wheel Drive, we'll cover subjects more about the mental aspects of playing and less on the intricacies of, X's and O's. Because as Coach Bryant used to say, it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Johnnies and the Joes. Okay. And Coach O'Leary, who we all played for, okay, Billy and I in high school, and you two in college at Syracuse, he was the same way. This theme is about making practices hard, okay, and instilling toughness in your players during practice, okay? As Dr. Galen McCullough mentioned in his book, The Long Shadow of Paul Bear Bryant, Coach Bryant knew that people who suffer together bond together. This philosophy was demonstrated in his training camps. Coach Bryant won 6 national titles, but the only ring he had on when he died was the Junction Boy ring that he had made for his survivors, as they were called. Watch that movie. Hollywood did take some liberties with that movie, but they do. And even though it's based on a true story, they take liberties. I had Rudy Rudiger on my show. We talked about the movie Rudy, and he said about 75% of it was true. Okay. Now, Thomas Paine said, quote, "The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph." Coach Bryant believes sacrifices are high, but so are the rewards. We know all about the rewards. Let's talk about the sacrifices. Coach Bryant said, "I want my players to go jaw to jaw for 60 minutes. Go all out and be reckless. You have to be tough mentally and physically." Brother Oliver coached and played for Coach Bryant at Bama. And this is what he said about Coach Bryant's practices when he was a player. He said, quote, "The players could hardly walk after practice. It took every bit of courage we had just to make it out on the field to start practice." Coach Bryant made practices unbearably hard, and I believe he did it for 3 reasons. Number one, he knew the more you do something, the better you get, repetitions. Number two, players that suffer and sacrifice together bond together. He knew that from his military days. Number three, Coach Bryant said the riffraff will soon eliminate themselves. Yeah, Coach Bryant, he called quitters and losers. He called them turds, right? And I was a freshman at Bama, man. Bama was trying to three-peat the national title. Man, and those training camps were just as brutal as they said they were the years before. And I can tell you a story about it, but, I think when I look at Nick Saban's practices and I read quotes from players that went to the NFL from Coach Saban, they said the exact same thing. And you guys probably will from Coach O'Leary and the coaches that you had that made practices difficult, that it was easier in the NFL than it was in college. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, for me, I think, who I am and the way I operate comes from obviously other people's ways, the way they operate, what they demand. But it also comes from, for me personally, it comes from what I never wanted. I was born with a cleft. I was born with a hole in my face. I had to either get tough, and as my mother would say, go play the violin somewhere else. You need to deal with this. And, you want to be tough. The first thing you do is deal with the problem. That means you face it head on. For me, the mirror was the problem. The inferiority was the problem. I had to go to school. I never wanted to. My mom said, yes, you are. You're going to face it. You're going to go out there and do it, and you're going to find out who you really are. And so when I went to Syracuse University eventually, I mean, it was a little bit easier when I was challenged to face my problems by George O'Leary. I had heard that before. Remember, I was also beat to hell by my father. That you have a way of standing up when you start to get tired of being beat on. You fight back. The old military approach. They're going to beat you down. What are you going to do? You're going to lay in the mud. You're going to stand up. Most human beings want to have something to eat when they're hungry. Most human beings want to wake up in the morning. So when someone's pushing those things away, you have a tendency to naturally fight for them. So to end up what I just said, my birth forced me to get tough. My birth forced me to grow up and face adversity the right way. And as my mom would put it, is when you can eventually face adversity as if it's a blessing from God, you will win most of your battles. So when I landed with O'Leary, hey man, all right, he's tough. He brought it up to another notch for sure. And then when I was drafted by the Colts in the second round in 1984, who was the coach? Anyone know? Frank Bush.
Yeah, Frank. Yeah, he was. Yeah,
you know how many days of camp the rookies were brought in? 2 weeks early before the vets. And when the vets arrived, we had 4 weeks. Now, and people say, well, no, you can't. That's not allowed. Yeah, in those days, it was allowed. 4 weeks. How many days were we out of pads? 4 days in 4 weeks, plus 2 as a rookie. I mean, again, I would never have survived and adapted if it wasn't a mother telling me early, you better face adversity the right way. You better learn to embrace it rather than to run away from it.
Billy, where did you face adversity first? And I know you were a heavy kid. I think in middle school, and I know freshman year, and then the weight room, and Oscar and George transformed your body. But what did you have to push through earlier in your career in order to put up with O'Leary for 7 years? You had him as long as Blaze. I think you two are the ones that had O'Leary the longest that are living on this earth.
Blaze got some great points, and again, we've all had different journeys going forward, and a lot of people have had. And I feel that a lot of it was everybody's had, and I grew up, like you said, I mean, you get picked on, you get this and that, and everybody's been through it. And, back when we grew up, we never heard about bullying. It was never, that was never a thing. Now it's brought into the limelight a little more. And the kids now, and as they grow up, it's a woe is me attitude now. With a lot of these kids. Back when we were growing up, and I know when I was growing up, and like Blaze said, my father said, you get your ass in there, and if somebody's got something to say, you step up to them and say, let's get this thing settled. And the toughness part was instilled in me all through growing up. You know, as far as my father was a union carpenter, he was just a blue collar, tough son of a bitch, and that's the way he brought discipline home to the house. Now, I had a great upbringing. I was never abused as a kid. As far as we had discipline, you know, which was to me was normal when you got, you know, and I was not a smart kid going through high school or junior high, but I got the idea if I screwed up, there was consequences and there was a lot of discipline, and that brought me into when I did sign at Syracuse, and I did have Coach O'Leary through high school, and it was even brought up another notch at Syracuse as far as the discipline of playing under a guy that will not take second best. And Blaze will tell you as well as I will that there was a lot of mental toughness being taught by Coach O'Leary. And that was, you know, the physical part was just a half a step behind the mental part. If you were mentally tough, the physical part was nothing. You know, it was absolutely nothing. And a coach told me years ago, and I don't know if it was O'Leary or who was, that there's a very, very high price to pay for success and winning. And when we talk about hard practices, we talk about discipline, we talk about starting in that weight room. I mean, thinking about 90-degree days and doing sets of 50, sets of 100, just for that mental toughness when you got on the field. And Blaze will attest to it.
Well said.
When it was fourth quarter, we never thought about coming off the field, taking a blow after 4 or 5, 2 or 3 series. If you came off the field, you never went back on the field.
Right.
You know, back then. When I played in the NFL and I played in Canada, it was a step down from playing with Blaze, Jamie, and Timmy. You know, it was not even close to the mental and physical toughness of playing with those 3 guys.
No, not even the NFL. I played in the CFL and the NFL. Neither one they even came close to my high school or college coach. As a matter of fact, this weekend I'm going up Tuscaloosa and seeing Coach Lewis Campbell, my DB coach. We're having a reunion for the DBs up in Alabama this week, and we're going to have a blast. And but yeah, my college coach. I was telling Angie earlier today. My college coach was 3 to 5 times better than my NFL, 2 NFL coaches, and my CFL coach. Not even close. The position coach was better. He was X's and O's better. And you know, and I learned, you know, I grew up in a great household too, man. My mom and dad were present there all the time, and I was the youngest of 4 boys. So I got pounded on a little bit being the youngest. So I had a little younger brother theory. But yeah, I got bullied. Every one of us got bullied. And I found out that beating up my bully took care of that. I never had a problem with that after we actually went at it and I kicked his ass. So I never had a problem with him. So I learned a lesson about that. I learned a lesson about toughness from O'Leary. When I got to Coach Bryant, I was ready for it, and I was ready for I was ready for it, not X's and O's wise. I didn't know enough about how to play the game, but for Joe Riccardi just reminded me this year, 40-some years later, that, oh, yeah, they told me that after 3 days you were down there in pads, that I was a player. Well, why did it take me 3 years to get on the field? I mean, if I was a player 3 days in, why did it take me 2.5 years before I ever pulled down the jersey? But that was the price you had to pay back then. We didn't play freshmen very much back then. Now they get through it. I want to talk about that Thomas Paine quote.
Let me add one thing. Remember, moms and dads that are listening, young people that are listening, understand, man, they want toughness. You know, they're looking not just at your skill level, your 40-yard dash, but they're looking at what kind of program are you coming from. If you're coming from St. Thomas Aquinas, They know what they're getting. And I'm talking about colleges that are recruiting you. They want a person like Billy Pendock. They want a person like Jamie Kimmel, Tim Green, Blaze Winter. They want it coming from a program that immerses itself in developing tough men, smart, tough men. And in Florida, you either have hit or miss, and when you hit, they keep coming back to Bishop Moore, and they keep looking at those players because they know that they can find players that are going to have a certain quality about them, not just X's and O's, but when they are pushed, they push back.
Yeah, I think that's important that recruiters take a big emphasis on the toughness of a kid. And I don't know how much they look at it. I know they don't look at the DB coaches or their position coaches in high school enough. I was flabbergasted when our guys, were getting recruited by Alabama and FSU and all these big schools, okay? And I have a player in the NFL right now that I coached. I was flabbergasted that they didn't come and talk to the position coach. You want to know about the kid? Ask his position coach, not his head coach. His head coach, may be so far removed from the kid's day-to-day activities, he may not even know he has a girlfriend, for crying out loud. But his position coach knows that what they're getting. And I always thought, Coach Bryant would go in and he would talk to like the janitor, the teacher, the kid, somebody that had knew the kid away from football or away, that's the kind of recruiting that I think that should be done. Also, back then, there's a big military influence. Not so much now anymore, right? True. Thomas Paine's quote, right? I think the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. Oh, that is true, but I think it's from, military. And how about this one? The players could hardly walk after practice, and it took every bit of courage to make it out onto the field. In other words, Brother Oliver, the DB coach, said the first step was the hardest, to show up. The first step's always the hardest, man. It's like working out. Like after the show, right? The first step for me to work out, get my ass on the ground and start doing crunches and start stretching. That's the hardest part. Once I get that rolling, I'm good for the next hour.
And players today, young players today, stop looking for goddamn compliments. Stop looking for a pat on the back. Stop needing those things to go further, right, Billy? Well, Larry would let us suffer before he would say, you know what, you're doing a nice job. He wanted to see consistent growth more than one time before he would lend you a little bit of nice job.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was it, Billy.
The problem we have is society now is not telling us that anymore. Society, we all coached, and I got done probably 6-7 years ago, and whatever, you're only with the kids a certain amount of time, but the rest of the time they're listening to society tell them it's okay, even if you don't do that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. Everything is okay at the end. You're going to get something for just trying. If it's not that. The toughness part, being a male and being physical and tough is not what life is anymore. That's not what's being taught. And I got a great quick story. I went up to Old Forge last summer. I went up. Now Paulie remembers Old Forge. Blaze, I don't know. It's up where they had a statue up there of Paul Bunyan. It's been up there for probably 80 years. It's legendary. He stands up there. Is probably 25, 30 feet tall. He's holding an axe. That's like the like a man's man standing there, a guy that cuts trees in the woods. I went up there last summer and I was excited to see the statue again. I haven't seen it since I was probably 14, 15 years old. Statue's gone. It's not there anymore. I went to the first coffee shop. I go, where the hell's Paul Bunyan? That's what I come up here to freaking see. The woman said, well, that's too masculine of a figure to have anymore. So we had to take it down and put it on the ground back behind something. Now, what are you telling people? What is the issue here? That's so this is my point. You're the toughness and tough practices and doing 3 times the work before you have a game is not what it was. Going live 3 days a week.
Right, Billy? Who's coaching you? Who's coaching you, man? I mean, go to the NFL sideline. Who's coaching you? And you see what? Mrs. Susie. How you doing it? You doing well? Yeah, we're working hard and we're doing this and that. Ask the player, how's Miss Susie? All right. What am I supposed to say? Well, tell me, is she inspiring you, motivating you, getting you to what? Finish? Well, be respectful. And I'm like, respectful. What about the demands of the game? It's
all gone. It's all gone soft. It's all gone soft. Every generation. O'Leary talks about it when I bring him on the show. O'Leary says it. Every generation's getting softer, and it's true. To Coach Bryant, we were having. I'll tell you, and you guys, I might have told you this story, but I only tell it a couple of times a year, once or twice a year. But we were having a lot of fights in practice. So Coach Bryant, had 2 guys. They have a boxing match at the end of practice that went on forever, man. I mean, those guys were just at the end of about 6-7 rounds. And you would never be able to do that. That was his way of eliminating fights in practice, because he didn't want the players fighting amongst themselves. So he gave us a lesson. But you couldn't even do that. You couldn't even teach that lesson anymore nowadays. And because every generation is getting softer. I don't know what we can do about it. But we both have. I think all of us coached for quite a while. We all got out about 6-7 years ago, and it's been going downhill ever since. I don't think the quality's gotten any better. It's gotten worse. I think football coaching, football practices, instead of getting better, a lot of them have gotten worse. So I don't know what we can do about it. It's not going to get any better because they limited so many practices now and so many pads, so many days in pads.
W's will help. You put a fence around the field. The administration says, I want this person to run the team, and that person's not touched by the people on the outside of the fence because those people are not invited. They're invited to watch, but they're not invited onto the field. The administration knows that. The head coach is supported by his methods and his approach, and the players adapt to that approach. And usually the parents now say, yes, he knows what he's doing, and it comes from W's, because when people win, all of a sudden, well, he's a great coach, rather than he's a bully. That's thrown out the window, man. O'Leary would be a bully if he did not win. So he shut everybody up by having somebody believe in him, and players that followed his lead and finally rose up to the occasion. Now you win. Hey, man, you are a legend.
Oh, I know what I wanted to tell. One story before we finish up. You talk about too many guys are looking for pats on the back. O'Leary never gave us a pat on the back, except for, let me tell you an exception. It was the week before the championship game, our senior year against Henniger, both teams undefeated. Both teams just rocking number 2, 3 in the state, and he stood up the starters and told everybody why we were going to beat Vinegar, why we were so good. Now, I don't remember 95% of the brutal workouts that O'Leary made us go through, but I remember that 4 or 5% when he said, Tripoli, you're the best athlete on this team, and you could play any position on this team, and I'm including offensive linemen because I played both ways. I played offense and defense. Well, holy cow, for George to say something like that to anybody, let alone me, was just – I was so fired up that I could have ran through a brick wall for the man. But that's the little bit of psychological intelligence. Yeah, he beat you down, and then right before the big game, he was going to stand up and say why we were going to beat their ass and why you were good enough to beat them. And he went through every starter. I think he went through every single starter. I don't think it was just me he picked out. He went through every kid. Billy, do you remember that day?
I don't really remember it. I remember, I remember more of the horror stories than the good stories. But
hey guys,
you think about.
Go ahead,
now,
Billy.
Blaze, you think about when we were back. Just a quick point. Back when coaches, we were younger and we were coming up. You think about these coaches. The first thing on their mind was, we got 45, 50 kids, 60 kids here. We got to find the cream of the crop here. So the first thought they're thinking of is, who's going to be tough enough to last what's going to go through here. That was how it was back then.
That's right.
Whoever's watching right now can understand that we're going back 30, 40 years, 25 years. That's how coaching was kind of back then. Now it's more of what do you guys want to do today? How can we get 65 kids? Wait a minute now. How can we get 65 kids to stay on this team so I can keep my job? And I gotta make it. We gotta win a few games, but I gotta kind of grease these kids along so they won't quit. So there's where we get the compliments, the pats on the back, the pats on the head, and back when we started playing, it was not the way it is now. Just it's a different form of.
No, they're trying to weed guys. Coach Bryant wanted to weed them out, man. He called them turds. Let me get them off and out of this program before they cancer everybody and bring metastasize and start being malignant and bringing everybody else down. And then he was left. Look at the survivors. The only ring he had 6 titles.
One more point. I've been to a lot of I've talked at a lot of different places. I've been around a lot of banquets, and I'll run into guys that played for George back when we were in high school. I run into probably 20 to 30 guys. Now, I can't remember their names, but I remember one thing. I remember every one of them that disrespected O'Leary and couldn't stand him is all the guys that quit. Right. All them guys that said he was an asshole, he was a prick, he was a sadist, he was this, he was that, and they quit.
Yeah, the guys. The only ring he had on was the Survivor ring, the Junction Boys ring, and that was they didn't win a national title, but he was so hard on them that he respected those guys. I mean, come to think, 115 guys went out there and 30 came back. Right. 30 out of 115. Matter of fact, 3 out of 4 guys quit. 3 out of 4.
I watched
Gene
the movie.
Stallings is still alive. Gene Stallings is a survivor of Junction Boys. I'm going to get him on the show, and we'll talk about Junction Boys one day.
Absolutely, I'd love to be there for that. I've watched the movie at least 10 times. That movie, and the thing that you got to remember, and kids watching and people watching, out of those 35 kids that survived, 35 men, every one of them had the utmost respect for Coach Bryant.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey, let me say one last thing. See that picture of the 4-wheel drive? When people say to me, it would never work today, my response is bullshit. You put those 4 guys on the field today, the same results or better would happen. Because they were coached right, they were pushed right, they were developed right, and they had a attitude toward perseverance. And that was not only self-motivation, but it came from great coaching and parents that understood you have to be pushed to reach the top.
Right. Perseverance. Kelvin Coolidge said perseverance is omnipotent, which means
that's a great point.
Oh my
That's
God.
Great. Blaze, that's the point of the whole show right there. You got support of your parents are on the same page. That's huge.
Yeah, I know. And I know, man. Your parents are critical, man. Because I know people that didn't have bad parents, and they, as adults, they struggle. Okay, as freaking, I don't think they cuss anymore because Carrie Good and I talked about this Monday last night's show. So I'm trying not to cuss as much. But when you got bad parents, you raise bad kids who become bad adults, man. I mean, just they struggle. They're not always bad, but they just struggle as adults because their parents didn't raise them right. So dang it, be a good parent better than anything, even more so than a good coach. I love you guys. Thanks for the show, man. It was a great show.
Blazy, good job. Good seeing you, Blazy.
Hey, man, it's great to see everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Blazy.
Okay,
see you, buddy. See you, Billy.
All right.
Hey, Billy, tell everybody up there at the golf tournament we said hey.
Yeah.
I'm going to work on some guests.
Yeah, work on some guests and tell Coach Wojcik and Rune Dog and all those guys. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
See ya.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Okay, bye. All right, man. What a show, huh? God, those guys are good. Hope you got something out of being tough in practice. Make practices as tough as you can, and then you'll find the riffraff. You'll find the winners, and then you win, and everybody will know you're a winner. All right, thanks for watching the show. Have a great sports week. Everybody stay tuned for these great sponsors. Without them, this just wouldn't be possible. So long, everybody.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm the manager and owner of Cordova Lanes, and we help keep your mind out of the gutter. Cordova Lanes is part of the community of Pensacola. Being here for 43 years, we've entertained more people than any other bowling center in the city. We sell fun for a living. Cordova Lanes is located at 2111 Airport Boulevard in Pensacola, behind Cordova Mall. Come on out and see us at Cordova Lanes Bowling Center. Thank you.
75 years of service and high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray, and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.